Holborn Tube crash, a live report. Survivors talk of miraculous escapes, volunteer bailiffs, Union Block Council plan, and bargains on wheels. We report on new cars at any price. But first, our report on that lucky escape beneath the streets of Holborn in central London, just after 1:30 this afternoon. A Central Line train travelling west slammed into the back of a stationary train on platform 1 at Holborn Station. The driver of the moving train, Mr. Clive Theobald, was pulled clear by a fire officer. He said the driver's cab had been compressed to just 12 inches. The driver is still in hospital, it's thought with a broken ankle. 40 passengers in the leading coaches also escaped serious injury. They had just cuts and bruises.
If you were describing this accident, how would you describe this?
It is a major accident, and but for the grace of God, we could have had many, many casualties fatal.
What appears to have happened, officer?
One train has run into the back of the other train.
How serious?
Well, it's condensed the driving compartment to approximately 15 inches of the second train.
How many injuries do you know of at the moment?
Approximately 50 small, slight injuries. Cuts, bruises, bumps, and what have you.
It really could have been far worse.
Oh, yes, could have been another Moorgate.
Our reporter there, Simon Westcott. Well, we'll be going back live to Holborn for an update on the situation there in a few moments. The injured passengers were taken to St Bartholomew's Hospital. They talked to Simon Neve about what one of them described as the luckiest day of his life.
Well, the driver had obviously slammed on the brakes, and then we seemed to slow down gradually, and then there was a collision, there was a bang, and the lights went out and people were thrown to the floor.
And what sort of noises were there in the train?
Apparently in the first carriage a few people were hysterical, but everyone seemed to be very calm in their carriage.
What is it, a scratch and a graze on your leg? Does it hurt?
Oh, it's a bit sore.
And what sort of injuries did other people have with you?
Cuts to the head, to the leg, and some girl had glass in her hand.
Was there any panic?
A few girls started crying, and not a lot really.
And how did you all get out of the train?
Well, the first two windows at the front of the train, they were smashed by the firemen, and they told all the ladies to go up and climb out of those windows, and then gradually everyone started climbing out the windows.
And what was the sight you saw on the platform?
It was just police and firemen and ambulance people.
What about the train and the driver?
Yeah, as we got out, the driver was lying on a bench with some people around him, bandages all around him and cuts.
What state did he look in?
He was very, very shocked.
And what about the front of his train?
It was just embedded in the other train, behind the other train.
Certainly the emergency services have been very quick indeed getting here. The ambulance, the fire brigade and the police all were here within minutes, and perhaps that was one benefit from the Moorgate Tube disaster. Downstairs the station is closed, as is all this section of the Central Line, while engineers from London Transport try and find out what happened and they clear the tracks. How did they get you out?
Well, women and children first. They hacked out two windows in the front carriage, that's behind the driver's compartment, and it was rather like the SAS, actually, you know, like your television coverage. They manhandled us. We were shot through these windows by about 5 burly firemen, and they were very efficient about it, too.
How are you feeling now?
All right, I think I bruised my chest a bit, but no, I'm fine, really. Thank you.
Story there from passengers on that tube crash beneath Holborn. Well, at the scene now, with the latest information, Simon Westcott.
Here at Holborn tonight, there's a general air of relief at what's already being called the miracle on the Central Line. Right under where I'm standing, 60 feet below ground, the two trains have now been pulled apart. All afternoon, engineers have been down there with cutting equipment. Engineers are also down there trying to work out the biggest riddle of the day. And that's how it is, despite all the fail-safe mechanisms, one train should manage to run into the back of another train. Only one group of people seem to be positively benefiting by this small miracle. They're the news vendors. All the passengers going into the station behind me at Holborn to catch the Piccadilly line, which is still running, seem to be buying papers. The news vendors are doing a roaring trade. This is Simon Westcott at Holborn, Thames News.
Well, over the years, the London Underground has had a pretty good safety record. The last major accident was in February 1975 at Moorgate Tube Station. There's never been a complete explanation as to how the accident occurred, killing 43 people and injuring another 74. The disaster happened even though it was found that all the safety systems had been working properly. As well as a fail-safe signalling system, the Underground has a device that will automatically stop a train approaching potential danger. And all trains have 2 braking systems. Also, more safety devices have been installed in the last few years. Until Moorgate, there hadn't been a major accident for almost 25 years. What then might have gone wrong on the lunchtime tube at Holborn? Well, with me in the studio is Mr. Richard Hope, the editor of Railway Gazette. Mr. Hope, there must surely be a string of safety precautions to prevent an accident like this, so what on earth went wrong?
The first thing the investigators have to find out is whether the signalling was working correctly. If it was, the driver would see a red light protecting the train in front. The driver of the second train would be stopped at that red light. If he attempted to go past it, a mechanical arm on the track would be in the raised position, would strike a valve on the front of the train, apply the brakes, and the train would be stopped. No question about that.
What would happen then?
Well, he is then allowed to reset the brakes and to go forward. The rules do allow him to do this after he's waited.
Does he have any communication, though, with the station ahead of him?
Yes, he can telephone his control by clipping a telephone onto the wires along the tunnel wall. And this he should do if he stopped at a red signal. We don't know, of course, what he actually did. But the important point to make is this, that once he's been past a red signal, it is clearly his responsibility to drive his train knowing that the track in front is going to be obstructed and he must stop short of that obstruction.
Therefore he must drive slowly, presumably.
Therefore he must drive slowly.
From what you know of this accident, do you think we're talking about a mechanical failure, an equipment failure, or perhaps human error?
It's impossible to say. Signalling is extremely reliable, brakes are extremely reliable, but failures of that kind can happen. On the other hand, there was an accident in 1953, a very bad accident on the Central Line at Stratford, where 12 people were killed because in similar circumstances a driver had gone past a red signal, he restarted his train and he drove it much too fast and went into the back of another train.
Very briefly, for those of us travelling on trains tomorrow, is there cause for alarm now?
No, there isn't. No, the tube is extremely safe. After all, nobody was killed. 20 people will be killed on the roads of this country today.
Mr. Hope, thank you.
London Transport's Underground Operations Director, who's been at the crash scene all afternoon, is now with Simon Westcott.
Have to investigate the signalling system, the train systems, and of course the most important person, the driver of the second train. We are concentrating our efforts on getting the 2 trains out of the way, and as you know, we have separated the 2 trains, but the investigation is proceeding.
I thought it was impossible while one train is on a section of track for another train actually to enter that section. What went wrong?
Well, under the signalling system of London Transport, if there is a train on a section of the track, you're right, a second train shouldn't be able to get too near it. The reason for our investigation is to determine precisely why that happened, and that is one of the things that we should be looking at very importantly.
I understand that the train that was on the platform, that's to say the front train, had problems closing its doors. Could that have contributed to the crash?
No, it ought not to, because with the train in the platform, the signals behind it should be at red, and that should prohibit the following train from approaching. Then if for some reason the following train should overshoot a signal, there is an automatic device on the track which applies the train's brakes. Again, this is the reason for the investigation. We want to know all the answers, including the explanations from the driver.
The track is fairly straight down there, certainly the view from the platform. Would the driver of the second train have seen the end of the first train?
Well, we shall know more about that tomorrow night, because one of the tests we will be making tomorrow night is a sighting distance test, a signal sighting distance test, a rear of the train in the platform sighting distance test, and of course a number of speed tests. So we would hope to determine both the straightness of the track, the sighting distance of signals, and the possible speed at which the trains collided.
Well, throughout the afternoon, traffic in central London was severely disrupted as police cordoned off streets near the crash scene. The police tell us the barriers have now been lifted and traffic is heavy but on the move. On the Underground, no trains are running on the Central Line between Liverpool Street and Marble Arch, and elsewhere Central Line services are restricted. Piccadilly Line passengers can use Holborn Station as usual. And for any friends or relatives worried about passengers on the crashed trains, London Transport have set up an emergency bureau. The number is 828-5666. That's 828-5666.
In the Cup Winners' Cup, West Ham meet a Spanish second division side, Castilla, who are in fact Real Madrid's reserve team. In motor racing, it's the British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch this Sunday. Clay Regazzoni, winner of the race last year, will be making his first public appearance, sadly still in a wheelchair, since his 180-mile-an-hour crash in America in March. Watching, like a few million others no doubt, the Williams versus Ligier battle and the spectacular form of Alan Jones. When Alan Jones came to London from Melbourne 10 years ago, he sold cars down by the West London flyover and raced every other weekend. It was a long, hard slog through the racing ranks. Today, some would call him rich, although he wouldn't. Property all over the world, Switzerland, America, France. Affinities more with England than Australia?
Well, not more than Australia, because having been born there, you always sort of, your roots are there, but I have a very strong affinity to England or to Britain, because it's really to the British people that I owe really where I am today. There's been several British people during the course of my career that have given me tremendous help, and I owe a lot to them.
When Alan Jones joined the small Oxfordshire-based Williams team early in '78, before Frank Williams had won the Saudi and Leyland sponsorships, it was a gamble for both sides. It's paid off handsomely. Williams have won 8 Grand Prix in 12 months. Alan Jones is leading the Formula One drivers' table. Jones is a winner, but at this level, prestige, politics, and in his case, driving for points as much as places is very important. How does that suit him?
I don't really like it, to tell you the truth. I prefer to hop in the car and just drive flat out all the way and get the most out of the car all the time. But there is a time when you have to ease off. In fact, Jackie Stewart always used to say the best way to win a race is to win the race in the slower speed as opposed to the faster speed. And I think he's right, actually. Well, I'd probably like to win the British Grand Prix more than any Grand Prix, because I have all my friends here and all the people that supported me during my climb up to Formula One. And it's more or less my home Grand Prix, so I'd very much like to win it.
But you've had good times and bad times there. Does that give you extra experience, extra knowledge?
No, well, I've had some very good races at Brands, and I've had a bad experience. I broke my leg there. But I like Brands very much. It's a very tricky little circuit. It's got lots of idiosyncrasies, which you only get to know after you've driven many laps there. And I enjoy it very much.
Of course, it's said in press circles and media circles that it's a fight to the death between Williams and the French. How do you, as a driver, see all that sort of rubbish?
Well, it's a bit amusing for me. Frank takes it very seriously. He's determined to put the French down at all costs. And I must admit, it did give me a certain amount of enjoyment to wave the English flag out of the cockpit at Rickard in front of them.
And on now to tomorrow's high tides. At London Bridge, it's 1:20. At Dover, 10:15. The pollen count on another rainy day was only 2, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, more than enough. And just before we go to Francis for the weather, a tale of woe from Bexley in Kent. The children of St Mary and St John's Infant School are beginning to think it's never going to stop raining. They've twice had to postpone their sports day because of the weather, and now they want to know when they can hold it. And so too do the youngsters at North End School at Pearswood Road in Erith, Kent. They've sent a bundle of letters to Francis seeking his advice. One of them, Sandra MacDonald, says, "Could we have a sunny weather now, please?" So what about it, Francis?
Well, I'm sure the atmosphere has decided what summer to give us. I just can't quite wrap my mind around it. And today, again, one of the coldest July days I've ever seen. Temperatures, top temperatures around the region: 13 at Whittam, Aldborough 13.5, Harlow 13, Danbury 13.5, Stevenage 12, 13 at Chesham. And it goes on like at 12.5 Rochester, 13 Bromley, 13 Benenden. And of course, out in East Kent, it's been continuous moderate rain. Well, you remember in spring there was even talk of a drought, which was followed by one of the wettest Junes we've ever seen. And now, of course, the weather's bleak. People are starting to write off the summer. But really, it's just this cloud we need to get rid of. The light at the end of the tunnel's only a glimmer at the moment, but nevertheless, over the next few days, it will move away eastwards. But in the meantime, tonight, well, it's bleak and it's grim. Rain on and off during the night and a cold northerly wind blowing. Tomorrow, not much of an improvement. There's going to be rain from time to time. It's going to be dull and temperatures well below normal. This northerly wind still blowing. But on the premise that this can't go on forever, it'll probably brighten up in the afternoon, I think. That's it.
Hope so too. Thank you, Francis. Now, in case you've only just switched on, 2 tube trains crashed at Holborn Station this afternoon, slightly injuring more than 40 people. One of the driver's cabs was concertinaed, but the driver, Mr. Clive Theobald, escaped serious injury. He's being kept in hospital overnight, however, and 4 investigators from the rail union ASLEF are waiting to interview him. A union official said they'd be asking him for a detailed account of how the accident happened. Eyewitnesses say it happened when one train ran into the back of another, which was stationary. Passengers have told us it was a miracle there wasn't a serious disaster. And now for the national and international headlines from ITN. Buckingham Palace have denied that Prince Charles is planning to marry Princess Marie Astrid of Luxembourg. Moves to save the MG sports car factory at Abingdon have failed. It's to close in October with the loss of 800 jobs. Steelworkers from Concert in County Durham have protested at Downing Street in Westminster over losing their jobs. Nearly 4,000 will be out of work when the works close in September. And in Brazil, 7 people have died and more than 100 injured in a stampede to see the Pope. And that's it from us for tonight. Robin Houston will be here with the headlines at 10:30 tonight and at 1:20 lunchtime tomorrow. And there'll be more Thames news tomorrow at 6. Meanwhile, from Tim Hewitt, myself and from everyone in the newsroom, good night.
On Thames tomorrow at 9, the story of Edward and Mrs. Simpson.
Wallace Simpson, sir.
How do you do, Mr. Simpson? Wallace. The boy's name, surely.
After all, it's not as if I can marry him myself. Why not? You could always get a divorce from Duke.
Wallace Simpson. Future kings of England do not marry divorced women.
You mean they never have?
The award-winning drama series Edward and Mrs. Simpson begins tomorrow night at 9 here on Thames.
But next year on Thames, we pop into the Crossroads Motel.
Kariba Sparkling Crush. Real pineapple juice and grapefruit. That's worth having.
Ciao amici. Hello viewers. Italiano piace molto a tutta la famiglia. All the family loves Wall's Italiano ice cream. Questo sapore di caramellato è delizioso. This is rich toffee flavor. It's delicious.
Wall's Italiano, the ice cream of Cornetto in 6 magnificent flavors.
Mamma mia. Italiano è buonissimo. His mother likes it too.
Rosemary Clark is a model who relies on Imac for sensational legs. Razors leave scratchy stubble, but Imac dissolves hair deep down, leaving legs and underarms really soft and smooth. Imac, the baby soft answer to unwanted hair.
Today, lager drinkers are turning to gold.
When an articulated lorry has to turn left, it cannot follow the same course as an ordinary vehicle. So don't be tempted to use the gap to overtake. The driver hasn't made a mistake. He needs that much road to get his trailer round. Don't forget, as soon as he's checked his mirrors for the last time, he'll begin to turn, and then he won't be able to see you until it's too late. So watch out for big lorries turning left, and never, never try to fill that gap.
80 gracious years is a special birthday tribute to Her Majesty the Queen Mother on ITV. And in this week's TV Times, there is a pictorial kaleidoscope of her life as seen by the world's top photographers. It's a tribute you mustn't miss. And of course, it's summer on ITV, and there's a complete guide to all the other programs for the week ahead.
I never knew there was so much in it.
We even take you on board the Queen of the Seas to see how the stars enjoyed our cruise in this week's TV Times.
It's Thames with a Wednesday night of entertainment. At 7, Don't Just Sit There proves that facts can be fun. While down Coronation Street at 7:30, there's no smoke without fire, and Elsie Tanner's life is definitely in danger. At 8 o'clock, a brass band, but no brass. Brian Glover's musicians face financial disaster.
If I don't get paid by Friday, any connection between me and that band of yours is finished.
They owe as much to Allergy's music shop as some people owe their mortgage.
At 9, in the first of 4 films portraying women of exceptional courage, Hiltrud Sassenhaus recalls her dangerous double life in wartime Germany, helping to save 1,200 Scandinavian prisoners. While after the news, Baby Love at 10:30 stars Linda Hayden as a young girl who's growing up fast.
If you had have loved her, you'd have married her, and all this wouldn't have happened. You might have been me dad. You never even came to see her when she was sick.
She's very late.
And Baby Love, our feature film at 10:30, completes an entertaining Wednesday night lineup of programmes here on Thames.
Yes, it certainly does. All I need is your company throughout the evening. I've got it. Jolly good. Personally, I'm looking forward to that first of 4 films at 9 o'clock of Women of Courage. If you've been looking forward to the Crossroads Motel, here it is, and Victor's in for a surprise.